Hi there. Good afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to read A Night Divided, chapter 35. We encountered in the last chapter that the ground in the death strip is starting to look like a pocket, like maybe the ground is giving way, and so they're concerned. And Fritz is going to do some kind of building, is kind of what he alluded to. So here we go. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. That was from a French author. Dinner time was coming soon, and Fritz and I were debating what to do. Mama would be expecting us for supper. If we didn't show up, her initial worries would turn to anger when she realized why we were late. On the other hand, her anger was inevitable now. The instant we came home, she would know we had disobeyed her. And even if we tried to explain why, neither of us was sure the reason would matter to her. Nothing we'd already said mattered anyways. Besides that, we had spent the last several hours at a mad pace bringing bricks loaded into the tunnel, mortar mixed up, and finding tools and supports that we could use. To avoid having the building frames overhead, Fritz was mortaring together large sections of brick on the ground. He said it'd be several hours before they were dry enough that we could lift them into place. But we had plenty of work to do until then. I'll go home and I'll explain to Mama, I offered. It was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. I'd rather have faced an angry bear right now, but Mama needed to know where we were, and Fritz had to stay here and keep working. He looked down at me and he nodded. She's only doing what she thinks is right for us, Gerda. Try to remember that. One of her children is on the other side, and her husband. Yes, and he would be the first to agree with her. Papa will be happy if we make it to the other side, but Mother is right. He would never want us taking this risk. Fritz reached out for another brick in his stack, and I handed it to him. What do I tell Mama then? He sighed. Tell her that we love her, and that it'll break our hearts if she doesn't come with us. But you and I are going to finish this tunnel. It had never occurred to me that Mama might not come with us. Tears burned my eyes at the possibility. I couldn't be happy without her in the West any more than I could be happy in the East without my father. Somehow I had to make her come. Fritz dug away at the wall and inserted a brick deep into the dirt that would hold up the wider stacks he was eventually going to be mortared. Fritz figured they would brace the dirt until we were able to finish the tunnel. My thoughts drifted back to Anna. How long had she known our secret, and how much longer until she finally decided to tell? Time was running out for us. I could feel it, probably the same way my father had felt it days before the wall went up. This might help support the dirt, Fritz said as we examined the sunken area again, but I don't see how we can lift it so it doesn't get worse. That dark patch on the death strip is going to remain there. If they run a patrol through there, they'll figure out what caused it. You can sink wood planks along the bricks to lift it, someone behind us then said. Startled, Fritz and I turned. It was my mother's voice, firm and commanding. I couldn't quite read the expression on her face. It wasn't anger or fear or even disappointment. Thank goodness for that, because I could withstand my mother's anger and knew how to calm her fears. But the times in my life when I had disappointed her still felt like unhealed wounds. Now Mama held a flashlight aiming towards the ceiling. Over her arm was a sack filled with food. My recent days of hunger had fine-tuned my sense of smell, and I always knew now when food was nearby. I stared at her, completely unsure what to do next. I hated to disobey her, but I would have to do it. Nothing was more important than keeping this tunnel from caving in. Mama seemed almost rigid, making every effort not to touch the walls or look up at the dirt ceiling. I didn't bring you much to eat because we don't have much. Her voice was near to stone as her body, and I thought it would be all right once I started back to work today. But when I got there, they demoted me. Because of us? I asked. Mom sniffed and she shook her head. While I was with Irma Gertrude, they started looking into some letters I'd written to your father years ago. They said it was evidence that I still was divided in my loyalties. I told them that he was my husband, and of course I was loyal to him. They offered to help me divorce him, but I wouldn't do that. So I was given the much lower job as a consequence. What they'll pay me now won't begin to cover our rent or our food or anything else. Fritz nodded towards her. Mama? But she held up a hand. How much farther do you have to go? A long way. We're not halfway yet, Fritz said. How deep below the surface are we? Fritz shrugged. He stared at the level of the air raid shelter. I try to I've tried to keep it flat, but the further we go, the harder it's been to stay on track. I stepped forward. Mama, we know you don't like this idea, but now that we've started, we have to finish it. I know, Mama finally patted at the tunnel walls, then looked back towards the entrance. Fritz, you will not join their military. And Gerda, you must grow up where you can read any book you want, think any ideas you want, and we will be together again as a family. We will finish this tunnel. And with that, she set the food on the ground and she pushed past me, pausing only long enough to gently brush a hand across my cheek. And then she stood beside Fritz and she pointed to the sunken area. Those bricks will give us support. But if we can find a sheet of wood, we can force everything upward. It might work. But where can we get wood? Fritz asked. There's a door on the upper floor of this building, I said. It fell off its hinges, so it's just lying there on the floor. It's the perfect size. How do you know that? We only went up the main floor for the bricks. On one of the trips, I checked upstairs to see if there were more, I said, but I hurried back down because most of the roof is exposed to the sky. At the right angle, the guards could look down from the watchtower and see inside. Mama pressed her mouth tightly together and Fritz only shook his head. We'll have to get the wood from somewhere else. Not upstairs, where we would be exposed. Then from where, I said, unless we dismantle our own doors at home, where would we get something like that? And even if we did, can we just carry a big door through town? Would be our excuse for having it. I bumped into Frau Herberhart when I was bringing you the supper. The woman wouldn't let go until she asked 100 questions about you two and this garden. I can't imagine her letting us get past with a perfectly unused door. Fritz exhaled slowly. Okay, then. We'll get the door from upstairs, but tonight, after it's dark, I'll do it. It'll be me, Mama said. You two have taken enough risk. No, I'll go, I said. Neither of you know where it is, and we obviously can't find a flight to get up there to look for it. I'm strong enough, and I am the smallest. If they turn their spotlights onto the building, I'll fit into the shadows the best. Mama and Fritz looked at each other. Neither wanted to admit it, but they knew I was right, and so without another word, it was decided. After dark, I would go under the nose of the guards. Ooh. Now Mama's on board. What did it take? Well, she lost all this money. She can't afford to live the life they're currently living. It's not fair. So, boom. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Mom's on. She's going to help with the tunnel. I love it. Till tomorrow.